Thank you very much for joining, everyone. With the purpose of today's meeting is to look in a bit more detail at Work Package 1, which is about the autonomous control and the work that Callum and Charles have been doing, who will introduce themselves in a bit. And we want to have the main point of today is to have a really good discussion about it. We're looking to get some feedback from you guys on how we're going to test and implement these new methods in the field. Let me. I've got a presentation which I will bring up on the screen if that's okay. Bear with me a second. Just as a way of kicking things off. As you know, this is a 2.6 million 3-year DEFRA funded program. You've been involved with us for the past couple of years, doing mainly work on patch location forecasting and monitoring slug traps and slug numbers. You've hopefully you'll all have your maps, your Minecraft maps that you've been monitoring slugs from. So you now all know where the slug risk zones are in your fields. And Clive will have been out, will have laid the transects, and hopefully will. I know that some of you are already at least halfway through your monitoring period. Some of you have almost come to the end as well. And as you know, that's in terms of sort of technology readiness level, I suppose that's the area of this project that's closest to commercialization. And we're hoping that we're going to have a somewhere near commercial model of this that we'll be able to launch next spring when the project comes to an end. But the other element of this that you probably haven't seen an awful lot about is what's going on in the background as well. There's also the app that you've been involved in developing, and I know that there's been quite a lot of feedback and chit chat about that. But again, that's quite sort of close to completion, and you've all been contributing on the WhatsApp chat in particular, and the farming forum, and so on, and building that community around the work that we've been doing. So this is about what's been going on in Work Package 1 of the project, and in particular work that's gone on by Agritech Centre, Photonics and FarmScan Ag. And this is about autonomous slug control using nematodes effectively. And you can see on the left-hand side there the slug trugs that Kerry has been using to a rather sort of tortuous idea, actually, putting these slugs into there and then inoculating them with nematodes so that they go to a rather grisly, gruesome death. But then that's, I suppose, what this is all about. FarmScan Ag, who have been looking at how we can actually identify, Photonics, how we can actually identify slugs from their optical signature, if you like, in the field, and developing tech to do that. And FarmScan Ag on the right-hand side, once we've found out where they are, how can we actually spray them with, precisely with the right amount of liquid that is going to carry these nematodes and bring them to their grisly, gruesome death. That's all I wanted to say, apart from just to introduce. I think some of you have met Callum and Charles before, so I'm not sure we need much of an introduction to them. But I'm going to pass over to Callum and Charles now to take to talk through what they've been doing and what they're looking to find out from today. So, is that okay, guys? Can I hand things over? I don't know who wants to go first.
Me, I'm guessing. Morning, everyone. First of all, thank you very much for filling in the survey responses. It's going to be really invaluable for us to actually use some of that information. And what we really want today to be is kind of an open forum so we can have a good discussion We're in the process, just like Charles is, of developing this new technology. And what we really want to have is a farmer-led technology. So make sure that not only is there a market for it, but we actually make something that is useful and not just for the sake of doing something. So our job in the project is to basically build the sprayer and the spray technology. One of the things we're focusing on is making sure that we're trying to use off-the-shelf parts as much as possible, so that it is not only compatible with hopefully existing sprayers, but we can also ensure that parts are available and it's not a system that's completely proprietary that no one else can purchase. So it uses high pro nozzles and other pumps and things that you would see on commercial sprayers. So at this stage, we've selected to go at a 6 meter working width. There was a couple of reasons behind that. The primary one was we thought it was wide enough to give us a good concept that it could scale up, but it's also a good width for us that it doesn't make the cost and the actual initial testing part extremely expensive. The wider we go, that initial cost barrier entry into the market with more nozzles, more capital cost. We didn't want to go there, but theoretically, the concept is this can be scaled up as per need, and the camera cost as well. So on top of that, we've gone down to 25 centimeter nozzle spacing. A lot of people put in sort of their sizes that they wanted to have in there. We've gone that specific as a sort of a proof of concept. It's a lot easier to go wider, and most commercial sprayers probably are wider. But at this stage, what we want to see is if we can get that cost benefit better. If we are spraying particulars like nematodes, there's a cost there. So we need to balance that across the market. And 25 centimeters kind of the smallest before you go to very, very particular application sprays. And even at 25 centimeter nozzles, nozzle by nozzle control, there's a capital cost associated with that. So we thought it was a good meeting point in terms of we can get good accuracy on the ground, but it's also not so accurate that you have a huge investment to actually purchase it. There are a couple of specific things that we've had to do based on spraying nematodes that are particular to them. One thing is the filter sizes. So because of they are a living creature, if you try and shove them through a mesh filter, they no longer become living, and then they don't work as well, believe it or not. So we've had to do a couple of small modifications, but it's nothing drastic. And it just is something that's, basically removing filters. We also have a recirculating system, so they do need to be agitated, or else you lose that efficacy. Then on top of that, we're looking at using RTK. If we've got 25 centimeter nozzle spacing and we've got highly accurate mapping, we really do need that precision to be able to actually be where we are when we need to be and make sure that we're actually spraying the right spots. To get on to sort of the connectivity and how everything's going to go together, we are trying to make this Isobus compatible. One of the things is being available to integrate with existing platforms like My John Deere, all these other systems. If we can make it sit into that framework, it will be compatible by default. We don't know if the technology will be supported at this stage, but that's something we're really pushing for, because being able to get the information in and out of that system for us is pretty critical in making this an actual product, and being available to be used with things that and vehicles and equipment that people already have. And that's sort of why we're focusing on that shapefile format, which is, it's a standard format that a lot of people are familiar with, and hopefully between us we can get something that's very compatible. I think that covers where we're at. Charles, did you want to speak a little bit more about the vision side?
Yeah, I'll add some. Thanks for that, Callum. And hello to all, those I haven't met before. So yeah, I'm Charles. I run for 10x. We sort of focus on detecting mainly the invisible. So this one's a bit of an unusual one for us. And we sort of commercially operate within horticulture and breeding mainly, but this is one of an R&D sort of deployments. In the past, we've done some stuff. We did a lot of stuff with small robot company, things like blackgrass detection, and then some work with Cockle Park, their demonstrator farm, doing selective fungicide detection, or showing that it was technically possible, whether it be a smart idea or not. We're sort of focusing on the imaging and detection side of it. Slugs are an unusual one for us in that they're visible. We often stay away from things that are visible. If it can be done elsewhere on a drone, we don't typically do it. I think the challenge here is when they're visible, when they come out, and particularly finding them with color cameras in the fact that they're very well sort of camouflaged. And so I think it's been an interesting one for the team to more work on how they get the technology into a form that can be taken through the field at the right time, particularly in sort of low light conditions and night conditions, and how many passes. I think the see and spray or see then spray argument sort of rages on with I think a lot of the challenges of really knowing what's in the field before you go out or make any mixes or things being one of the biggest savings. And I think we've seen that with Deere's acquisition of some quite big drone technology to be able to show that actually there's a big focus on this sort of knowing what's going to happen before you go out, but then also knowing where it is when you do go out. So I think we're trying to make the system flexible, modular enough so that it can be part of what I think a focus for this project started on, which was an autonomous system. But I think with where the market's gone in the past sort of 2 years, it may sort of start off with more traditional tractor based or 3-point linkage type systems as a whole. Our main interest today, I mean, I've got a video I can definitely show. Some of you guys have not seen it running before. Our main challenges when we've worked with these kind of sectors in the past is the speed. So I think when we've done it in the past, we've been going about 1.5 meters per second. So what's that, just short of 5 kilometers an hour? So pretty slow. And so the speed, it's trying to align that if you were trying to do that properly, especially in low light conditions, how feasible that is. And then the second one really is the one that I'm sort of most interested in, and I think where lots of applications in this area fall over is the business case. The business case for slug detection service alone is quite small or very small, and it's trying to work out if you're taking a boom through the field, what else could you be monitoring that's actually of use, and trying to put into more of the full service offer for applications, and really informing that every time you go out in the field and you're taking information, then you're actually able to inform every application that you do, and the value compounds. Our business model works as a service base. If we're not providing a value in the cost, we don't get paid. So it's very focused to us. We're very careful what we choose, and hence why a lot of our focus has been in horticulture. That per unit area is probably 100 times more focused, particularly in crop scouting. So I think that's a big interest for me today in the discussion, is to hear kind of what you guys have used before, and I recognise a lot of the names from the survey. So thank you as well. And B, where you kind of see the things that you would want from it, and I think that's the focus for us in the remaining few quarters, is to ensure that there is a kind of a pre-commercial prototype that shows you how close the technology is. It might be smaller, it might be slower, but it will show that it's technically feasible. And in terms of technical feasibility, we've had some great trials already. So the past quarters have seen ATC run some reference material. So they took slugs and sort of cross sections of topsoil of different tillages, imaged it under what we call our reference system, and then they did the same in field by taking out effectively what looked like a wheelbarrow with a camera on, and taking sort of field ready things. And the short answer is, if the slugs are in the view, then it's easy, but if they're not, it's not. And slugs like to sort of disguise themselves and go underneath things, and especially with the type of tillages we're targeting, I think the real challenge is going to be getting them out and getting the activity just right, which is going to be great. But yeah, it's an exciting sort of crescendo of the project, and we're certainly keen to see how close the commercial viability is and speed, but also how developed the market is, to see how far away this could be to really being something that could be applied commercially and add value.
Great, thanks both. Has anyone got any thoughts on what Callum and Charles have just talked about, and especially has anyone got any experience in this area? I mean, it's a very new area, but you're all sort of at the forefront of bringing new tech into the field. Have you got any experience in perhaps sort of other bits that you're doing, other trials that you're doing that could bring to this, bearing in mind what you've already talked about in your survey responses? Anyone want to kick off?
Yeah, Tom.
Pete, yes. Thanks for joining, Pete.
Share some experiences. Been using parasitic nematodes, sort of trialing very successfully with a Capsenum one Coppert's product for wireworm control. We had about a 95% survival rate through bilirubin air injection nozzles on a 48-meter Agrifac. But when we tried Nemaslug, we killed about 60 to 70% of the nematodes through the system. And yeah, it was unsuccessful. So they seem, as a species, the ones for slugs, very susceptible and weak compared to the parasitic nematode you use for wireworm control. So just sort of sharing some experience.
Sorry, Pete, I don't think we've met before. Can you hear me?
Probably not. Sorry, because I've only just joined the project this year, and the cereals is just a break crop for us. We're a massive salad grower, and slugs can be a problem in our salads. But obviously, very keen to get involved, and we grow over 1,000 hectares of wheat as a break crop. So, yeah, jumped on board and joined the project this year.
Just to do a brief introduction there, Kerry, Pete is joining us from G's. And so as Pete said, they view the cereal crop as a break crop. They need to get rid of the slugs before they put the lettuces in. And so really, really pleased that they've joined the project. And Pete brings with him, as he mentioned, some experience of nematodes. So I'm sure you've got a lot to talk about.
Well, the work that me and Callum are working with together with the filters and things, Peter, would be interesting to have a side conversation with you as well. One of the things with the nematodes from the Nemaslug product, we're trying another product with Bioline as well, but Nemaslug has like a more gel-like clay around it, I've noticed, in the Steiner Nemo ones that we are using. So it'd be quite interesting to see what the Steiner Nemo product you've been using with. Is that from BASF as well?
Yeah, it's from through BASF.
Okay. Well, let's have a chat on the side. But yeah, that's why Callum was talking about the filters and things, because Nemaslug, even though they have that cuticle, they're just under a millimeter small. So we need to make sure we don't blow them to smithereens as we spray them through the filters.
Yeah.
So that's what we're developing. Yeah, I think that's probably what's happened with your filters.
But after having such good success with the Copper Capsenum product for wireworm, and we got quite a significant reduction in wireworm control and very good viability of the nematodes out of the nozzles, because we were checking them under a microscope afterwards, and just kind of assumed that Nemaslug would be the same, but clearly not.
No. That's actually, I was having a conversation with a person yesterday. I'm quite interested in chatting to Coppert and seeing when they're going to join the market on developing the slug nematodes, because they're interested, but BASF has got the monopoly at the moment. So.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be around the Copper production factory, and it is incredibly impressive.
I would like to get them on board with a few other biologicals. But yes, let's have a side conversation, if that's all right with you, Callum.
Yeah, absolutely. Did they give you any feedback as to why there might be that kind of failure rate with them, or was it just a?
No. They've just said it. They do have a lot of production issues as well, so the viability and strength for the nematodes is quite poor. Because the number of times I've wanted to do the project on the farm, they've failed to supply because they've got quality assurance issues and
they've changed their way of producing. So a good few years ago, the product worked well, and they didn't have these quality things. But in the last year, they've had these quality issues with their production, hence why I'm sourcing out Bioline production as well, and see what working with their stuff. I've got their stuff in the lab as well, but it's something they're tweaking at the moment. Need to get back to where they were, because the product used to work really well, and the cuticle on the juveniles is extra strength, so I could put I've put them through a number of things, and the Phasmarabditis species is actually quite strong in all these different like the Steiner Nemo. So they're quite good, because the juvenile has a cuticle layer around it, so it can go through the soil, and then when they reproduce on the slug, they lose the cuticle layer because they're in the slug. So they're kind of protected, so they've lost their protective layer. But there seem to be, at the moment, the quality they're producing is a lot of adults in a pack, which is unhelpful. And they've got to get that right. But that is the thing they're producing, tweaking at the moment. They just need to get their asses into gear to be done. Sort of back. But yeah, let's have a chat.
I guess the development. Sorry,
Callum.
Oh, yeah, I think that is the thing that Kerry is. Yeah, what we're trying to do is get Kerry basically a lab-based sprayer, which is not as easy as it sounds, which she can run tests through with the nematodes through, so we can test a bunch of different nozzles, hopefully under almost identical conditions to what we'll be using in the field, because there are so many questions as to the efficacy, failure, death rate, all that is quite unknown at the minute, and there aren't many people who have a long history or any history of actually using this product. So great to have you on board who's got some history using it, because Kerry and I haven't had much success finding people. So yeah, it's for us. She's very graciously doing that lab work, but then hopefully that'll lead into that cost benefit, and then whether or not what applicability we'll have in the field. But it seems to change batch to batch. So from that perspective, it's still a developing market. So.
Can I ask, Callum? Sorry, Pete, you carry on.
No, I was just going to say there's a lot of work needs doing in the production of the nematodes, quite clearly.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, that's not necessarily something that we can do within the scope of this project, but one thing we can do is look at its application in the field. And so specifically, Callum, what sort of things are you going to be exploring in the field that not necessarily actually putting nematodes through the nozzles, but there's all sorts of sort of issues around width of the sprayer, what sort of spray quality and things like that. What sort of things specifically are you looking to test in the field?
I think it's primarily there's two things. One of them's, I think the main one for us is accuracy. I think a lot of that, Tom, will depend on what Kerry's testing comes out with, but we are limited by what's commercially available as well. So we've got the range of nozzles. We can adjust the pressure. The problem is that nematodes are so new that we're not quite sure where we need to sit. But we do have the ability to make those adjustments, which that's the nice thing. We can tweak up and we can tweak down very easily. The one thing that's the big test for us is that accuracy. Conceptually, what we're doing a little bit different to most people is, rather than, if you think of any multi-spec spraying system that you've seen previously, it tends to be look like a wide mower, and everything's all built into the same hood. We've elected to separate these two systems, and on the front of the vehicle we'll have the camera system, and then on the rear we're going to have the spray system. A couple of benefits to that, the main one being that they don't have to work at the same time. So we can do the camera system can operate while there's no spraying system on, doing other operations. It also protects the camera system, so there's no risk of being sprayed or damaged, that kind of thing, rocks, which would otherwise could be a risk at the back. It also allows us, if we need to go faster, we can also do that, as the camera system has already done its scan primarily. So that difference between it and now that we're looking at whatever that width could be, or that length from front to back is, means that the accuracy becomes more important, because the two systems need to be completely in sync. And we're talking about an expensive product that needs to be in the right place, and it's going to be based on slug density. So for us, that accuracy and translating that into a cost-effective spraying map, rather than blanket, if we just blanket sprayed it, it'd be horrifically expensive and a waste of everyone's time. So we need to find a balance in slug density versus effectiveness of sprays. And so that's what we're kind of trying to balance out now, is how accurate, how exact, and how small can we get, because that will be then based on what kind of slug patches we actually need to spray. Because if there's one slug and we only have a 50 centimeter nozzle spacing, and that equates to whatever it is in milliliters or whatever we want to say, there's a cost associated with that. So we need to balance that out with that slug density. So that's the kind of, not only cost benefit, but we need to get all those numbers before we can actually get to a commercial product.
Yeah,
Pete, can I
Jonathan.
ask about do you do much of this slug protection in your salad crops?
I think you're asking Pete.
Yes, but the challenge for us, we're on a regen journey, cover crops, never any bare soil, and slug pellets. We can't really use them in salad crops only immediately at planting, because you obviously can't have a contamination of a blue pellet in a salad plant. So we've got to be controlling the problem in the other parts of the rotation, i.e. the wheat crops and the cover crops.
Interesting.
So that's kind of like our focus, because once we've got slugs in the lettuce crop, there's nothing you can do unless we can spray the nematodes.
Okay. Because for me, I mean, we've worked with Rob a few times at your site, and I just think there's some great stuff that you guys do, you know, zapping sort of weeds or inter-row weeds with lasers and spot spraying things. And to me, as a route to arable, where it's a much higher value per unit area and slightly slower speeds are semi more acceptable, I think we would definitely include that kind of crop within our route if it was viable, because it's something that's a lot more closer to what we do in under a lot of glass and polytunnel. So I'm glad you're on the call. And I think it's interesting to have that, because I think the arable sector will benefit from a trickle down, because if we value the cost of providing a service just to arable, it won't stack up. And I think a lot of the stuff we're going to have to de-risk it a lot more en route, and your kind of row crop stuff will be certainly something that we would be looking at that would be quite viable, hopefully within the realm of this project.
Yeah, because the scanning options, we're scanning all our crops for measuring the size of each lettuce plant. So, you know, there's an option to scan for slugs at the same time.
Yeah.
Jonathan, you got your hand up. Do you want to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Morning, everyone. Just to play devil's advocate, I suppose, is there a need for a vision system to detect slugs and either a tractor-mounted system to then treat them, if we've been working on a concept that effectively uses soil type to identify where patches will be, and then we could perhaps use a drone-based system to then treat those areas? Is there an actual need to detect slugs at that granular resolution?
Charles,
do you want me to start? Thanks, Jonathan. Hope you're doing well. I can't see. I don't know if that's my screen or things, but an interesting question, and one that we ask quite a lot. I think the soil type measurement, I think, is what in a different work package. So there is some work within this project doing a similar aspect. I think for here, the aspect is really looking at having to apply a nematode on a slug. And I know they last for a while, but I think the real focus here has been trying to do actual nematode on slug application. And for that, you do need to find the actual slug rather than just map out probability areas of it. Would that system wipe its own face commercially? I think the answer is no. And I think I agree with you sort of in a devil's advocate way. But the question is, could you use a similar sort of see and spray or spot and spray system for a number of different applications within a same crop? Then I think the answer is yes, and that's why we're trying to do. So I've sort of not tried to steer away your question, but I think there would be use of a system as a supplement or a series, a catalogue of services, but in isolation. I'd be very interested to see sort of selective nematode application from a drone. I think that would be quite an interesting thing to find out, because I know how much the team are working to get it working on a standard boom. So I think it will be certainly interesting. But for us, we're very keen, and I know you guys know, like the team at Drone Ag, and for us, we're very ground based, and we try and steer away from things that are possible from the air. But I think some of these things you can't really do with RGB, and well, you know more than most that the spectral imaging has uses, but it's limited from the air. And so I think we're trying to sort of add on things that we can do on the ground that are to a high enough accuracy that actually provide value in detection and how early they detect. So a lot of these slugs are quite small when we first saw them.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I think also I had in my mind with the practical considerations of when you would be applying the nematodes. It's often when the soil is moist, and then if you're then tracking around the field, you're creating compaction, and all those kind of things, and where the drone element, that eliminates that. So I suppose that's what I'm trying to thread in.
That's a really good, and here's an open question, because Callum already mentioned that we're for the imaging bit, we're trying to put it on a front mounted linkage, but there has been some feedback about having the boom available on kind of ATV type systems, and that was one of the kind of moves of having quite a lightweight boom. Would that relay some of those concerns about? I know Small Robot were taking systems out quite late in the field, but I don't know whether that was how amenable that was to the growers.
I suppose some years we have issue in really wet years when you have a lot of slugs that you can't actually get on the field whatsoever because it's too wet, which kind of reduces the idea of what you're trying to achieve in the first place. So again, that's where if it was a drone mounted system, and I'm not saying you should change the project at all, I'm just kind of raising a point, but you can still access that field to treat the problem with that kind of situation.
Interesting.
Charles Painter, I can see your hands up.
Yeah, just carrying on the practical application for broadacre arable crops. First of all, I think there's a big omission in as much as as far as I can tell, we're not looking at slugs at when you sow the wheat or the cereals, because a lot of the damage can occur at germination. So as soon as the radicle comes out, the grazing starts and the seed is attacked then. So in my stupid farmer sort of mind, I think we need something a bit more predictive added onto this. So what's really come home for me this year is the effect of soil moisture deficit. I'm not seeing a lot of slugs this year, and it's bone dry at a foot on our land. So I should imagine, Kerry will tell me more about this, but I should imagine that they're not hatching, the eggs are not hatching. It's not really conducive for slugs. So I think a predictive model would help. Previous like this year that we've got a significant soil moisture deficit. If that had been built into a model, that would tell us, I would imagine, more about slug activity, rainfall events at the present time and in the future, what they're likely to be. So we've got a dry autumn. So to what kind of level of moisture, rainfall would we need to be before slugs would be an issue? The other final thing is we're doing a lot more, you alluded to regenerative cropping. So that's trashy seed beds. So we're trying to keep more debris in the surface for soil protection purposes and to cut costs on cultivations and things because we're not ploughing so much. We also need to build in some prediction into this, and also quality soil type, clay levels. We all know this, and quality of seedbed. If you had a sort of a 5 or 6 point plan with soil types, water, trash, I think you'd have more of a predictive thing, because in my experience, once you see slugs on the surface, you're already in trouble. If you're walking around and you find them, most of us go, oh Jesus, get the ATV out and go out with slug bait. If this is to be really effective, we need to be there beforehand, and what's going on at sowing and early germination, I think, is a glaring omission to this.
That's a good point.
I don't know if I can quickly. I think that's a really interesting concept. I know it'll be anecdotal, but would you say that the moisture at the time of sowing is a fairly good indication of what the slug? I know there's going to be impacts on that moving forward, but at that time, would you say that if you had a soil moisture, it would give you enough information to have a reasonably good prediction as to if there would be slug activity?
Usually, yes. The only thing I would say this year is we've got adequate soil moisture in the top 6 inches, because we've germinated the crop and it's growing, and the roots are down about 6-8 inches. Yeah. But we've got no significant moisture below that. So if you get my brother was trying to dig a hole with a an excavator, small excavator. He had to resort to getting an actual single tine to actually penetrate down, because it is still bone dry as it would be peak summer. So I would think it would be, it's unusual, but we're going to see this unusual, for this to be robust, it needs to be able to respond to the extremes that we're going to be seeing. I think we all know that's what's coming towards us. So,
Kerry, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, Charles, you're quite close to me in Bedfordshire, and it's been a very sad year for slugs. I'm having a rough time trying to find some slugs, and I don't torture them, Tom. It's a nice circle of life going on in those slug trucks.
Kerry, we don't mind if you torture them. do your thing.
I think you've had too much Halloween. Yeah, so from the biology perspective of the slugs and the egg hatching, yes, the soil's been way too dry, and over the summer it's depleted the slugs, which is great for us at the moment. I think possibly you've also had that down here, Reese, with Cambridge. You've probably got a lot less slugs because you're quite close as well. And with the eggs not hatching right now, it means the slugs that are coming up are the older ones that were in the just below the soil. We haven't got loads of little ones. Further north, there's plenty. But in the last few nights, I've actually gone out and got a few of my other big slugs that I like to use for culturing and things. Am I doubling up on a voice here? No. Okay. When we look at the bigger picture, when we're talking with Charles earlier, he was talking about the application not just being with slugs, and we're going out and scanning for multiple things. We've got to think of the bigger picture with that. With slugs in the biology, yes, this year, less slugs. If you went out, you had Keith's prediction maps. You knew where to go on the fields and have a look with the rig. The compaction would be less if we're utilizing the knowledge we know from Keith's side, but we're also utilizing the rig, going out and looking for slugs. And then we're doing, from Callum's side, the precision application, which allows us not only to consider alternatives like biologicals, because it brings the cost down, but it would also bring the cost down even if we're using if we're putting pellets just in that areas. With the lettuce, from Pete's side, that's where the biologicals come to play. We know the nematodes work, and they work really well. BASF is playing around at the moment. They need to sort themselves out. So by the time they've got them sorted out, we've got the tech ready to go. And then Charles also has developing a system that you can use for multiple diseases, multiple pests, bigger application for precision farming. I may have rattled on a bit there. Did it make sense?
Yeah, I think it all sort of ties into one another. Yes. the whole drone spraying thing. I think that's got huge. I think that's a huge application, but it really depends on the density of the slugs and where we're actually spraying. So I think that's something.
And the crops and things as well.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we could definitely pull out of this. Yeah, that could be one of the outcomes of this project, is that it's actually more easier, it's more beneficial to spray. But what we have to do is we have to ground truth all the research that we're doing to make sure that it actually says what we want to do. One of the questions that I had is the work package 2 maps in Keith's work is supposed to be doing these hotspots. How reliable are they? So if we went out and only went over those hotspots, I mean, some of the feedback was awesome. Everyone was aligned on a lot of things, even though everyone answered independently, like work rates and that kind of thing. So all of that's very important. Would people trust going out and only looking at those hotspots, or does that become we need to do the whole field? It'll be really interesting to find out from what everyone's perspective is on those hotspots and how trusting we can be on them.
Kerry, I can see your hands up, but actually just on that, I really appreciate some farmer feedback on that. You've got your maps. What's your gut feeling about that? And I don't know whether you've actually found some slugs in areas that are not supposed to have the slugs. Anyone got any thoughts on that? Particularly from the farmers.
It's maybe a bit blasé, but I've just been trusting Keith's map. If I haven't found any there, I haven't bothered looking anywhere else. But also, like Charles says, there hasn't been that many around this year. But no, I think I'd be quite trusting. I mean, I guess we've been in the project for a while. There's plenty of evidence. It all makes a lot of sense. So, and Keith's map is where I would have guessed they would have been anyway. With that bit of intuition and knowing where sits wet and what have you. So, I think I'd be pretty happy with that.
The transects have been quite purposefully placed, Reese, so that they should lie on the intersection. So in theory, you should get slugs in your high risk zone,
half and
and
half,
not the
roughly.
ones in the low risk. Sorry.
Yeah. So as we go up and down, it seems to be we find them nearer the yard, which is the worst end, and not as you get into the field. So
right.
Well, looks
and you're finding that in your transects, in the traps as well.
Yeah.
In the trap counts.
Yeah.
Interesting. I haven't actually started mine yet. My crop is literally just emerging as we speak, so I've got that joy to come shortly. Any other experience in terms of trusting the maps? And must say, Stuart, because you're right up in Durham there. Slightly different conditions that from Charles and Reese, for example, on the drier soils, and myself on the drier soils down here. Interested to know what sort of experience you're getting this year. I know that you tear your hair out over slugs.
Yes.
It's
Can you hear me, by the way?
for you. Yep, we can hear you, Stuart.
Yes, up here it's been so dry all summer, which I can't remember a year quite like it. And we've seen such little activity to what we normally see. We still have put a dressing or two of pellets on a few areas, not the trial, obviously. So yeah, it's just a very unusual year. But yeah, there is some slugs coming up over the last few weeks. I'm not sure how that relates to Keith's maps. We'd have to kind of look at it as we go on, but there is a bit of activity, but as I say, it's a very unusual year to really give it an accurate representation of how things are up here for myself.
You're doing an adopt project, Stuart, aren't you? Do you want to just briefly describe?
We failed.
Oh, right.
Actually, I was going to have a chat with Laura sometime because our previous facilitator I wasn't 100% comfortable with, so I liked the sound of Boffin. He sounded more go ahead and a bit more get up and go. So I thought, well, if Laura could, perhaps we'll catch up with her sometime.
Yep, definitely, Stuart.
Resubmit.
Yep. No.
That sounds good.
It's worth pointing out. So just coming back to your point, Charles. How much does soil moisture relate to things? How much does trash relate to things? What we're developing through this project is maps to get you in the right place as far as the soil zone is concerned. But of course, moisture and trash are two things that vary year on year, day on day almost, that do come in. And that's the sort of thing that we can explore through an adopt project and take some of the learnings on from this project. Stuart, your hand's up again.
Yes, sorry. I was just going to say I'd like to agree with what Charles pointed out earlier. If you see slugs in seals, it's too late. You need to be proactive. You've got to get out there and get ahead of them, otherwise you can lose it at hollowing before it's even come through. So that's what we found over the last 20 years. The only other question I might have is the nematode spray. I presume this is a direct contact with the slug. How would that work if the slugs aren't on the top, if you like?
That's a really good question.
I just missed the very start of the webinar.
Kerry.
Oh, yeah. So the nematodes survive really well on certain soil structures, and the work Keith's been doing and the work I've been doing with nematodes actually mirrors each other, where you look at the nematodes where they survive the best and where the slugs survive the best on the certain soil types. So with the precision application of the nematodes, you'll be spraying, even if you're hitting one slug, you've still got that surface area around the slug, because I think it's about a 20 centimeter area, Callum, is that right? That we're going to be spraying of the nematodes, which means you've got a kind of like a net. And with the populations of the nematodes, they go up and down the soil column as the humidity in the air comes up and down. So if you've got the machine out and it's out at not the optimal temperature and there's only a few slugs, you've still got the nematodes acting as a net. And as the slugs come up, because they are parasites of the slug, you have evolved to find the hosts and things. So the closer to the area, and being the net, the nematodes will kill the slugs and deplete the populations in those areas.
So could I just ask then, if you were to spray the nematode spray or apply it, that would sit in the soil, if you like, a bit like a residual.
Yes, and doesn't wash as well.
Yes, and as the slugs come up, they'll prey on the slugs.
Yeah.
And I do believe it's quite expensive at the minute, so you would probably target your high-risk areas and hopefully not need any more pellets.
That is the dream.
Right.
And if we're using 20 centimeter areas and we're hitting, say, a few slugs in each shot, that means you're already knocking that population back, so they can't be mating that night or not that night, but in the next few days. So, because if you look at the experiment, not the experiment, sorry, if you look at the mating habits of slugs and the hermaphroditic, the more you knock out that population, the faster your population goes down. And at the moment is a very good way of understanding that you've still got slugs, but you're not seeing as much damage on your crops and things. They're just eating a little bit of organic material around and a very low amount of damage on your crops. Actually, Stuart, I was up in Durham this weekend and in August, and I was miffed because I still couldn't find slugs in August at all because it was so dry. It was dusty
Yes,
ground.
I mean, we're very proactive. We pellet post combine and pre-drilling or post-drilling, I should say.
Yeah.
But I'm just kind of thinking when the timing would be best. As I say, coming back to Charles's point, you do need to get ahead of them.
Yeah, that's why we're looking at that point of just after germination. So when the slugs start coming up, if you consider the weather conditions around about, if you think of the spring crops in February, as the weather gets a little bit warmer, Dorossus reticulatum comes out at just about the same point as your crops start coming up.
Yeah. Right, thank you.
Yeah.
Charles, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just Reese is already doing it. I'm moving that way, but doing in-furrow application of liquid nutrients and things. Is that feasible? So you're actually applying at the seed zone, actually applying something, part of a liquid product there. And the other thing is compatibility with nutrition products or fungicides, herbicides, that kind of thing. How compatible are the nematicide, the inoculants, how compatible are they with routine stuff that we use?
I think the question's in there for both Callum and Kerry, if you want to address those.
I can go first. I think from an in-row application is very interesting. We looked at, the problem is there's not a lot of good statistics on nematodes at this point. Like sometimes people would quote that they could live up to 30 days in the field. And we thought, at that stage, you could do it whilst drilling and potentially, get some benefit from it. But I think the in-row crop thing is definitely applicable because you're effectively targeting what they're going to eat. So it doesn't really matter as long as they don't eat the bit, they'll always head towards that location. And I think it works quite well with the technology that they have to do that in row, and that small, minute application is based on very low application rates and is based on not pushing highly filtered products through, especially if they're using like peristaltic pumps and that kind of thing. That would be very, very applicable because you'd almost have 100% survival rate because there are no filters in those systems. So that kind of technology aligns itself quite well with actually doing it in row at the time. So that's very interesting.
So Charles' question with the other applications of the other fungicides and things in the field, that is something we need to explore a little bit more. That has been done a bit of exploration of biorational controls, like you've got the lipid breaking down biorational controls from like cedarwood oil and things like that. There's quite a few things that's been done with that kind of thing. And again, back to that cuticle in the juveniles, because it moves in the soil at that point in its life stage, it protects it really well. In fact, it kills other non-beneficial nematodes without the cuticle. So I would like to explore that a lot more, But anything that's too toxic in the soil, we shouldn't be putting in the soil too much. I think we're all trying to step away from that at the moment. But yes, let's do some more exploring of that as well. Can you think of anything? Sorry, Charles, can you think of anything offhand that I should be testing straight away?
Well, I mean, typically we'd be applying herbicides pre and post, and that can be quite a cocktail and pretty toxic, I would imagine, to living forms. And there can be at least 2 applications of that if you're really trying to tackle blackgrass.
If you're okay with it, can I come grab some samples from you and play with it in my lab a bit? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Reese, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think Callum maybe answered that when he said about the longevity in the field, but I guess that means it's not the kind of thing that will proliferate over time, and you can build a population which is inherently in your soil.
Yeah, when you it's a really good point actually. That of course we're not bothered about the majority of the field, you could almost say. The only bit that we're bothered about is the zone where the crop is actually growing. And so if a slug passes into that zone, that's where we want to catch them with this net. Obviously, you can't treat the entire row because again that would be preclusive. But we now know, or we should know, the zones within the field where those crop rows are at risk. If we can sort of begin to narrow that down, and then build in on that at the other end, the actual slug detection technology, so we know where we should be looking pretty precisely within the crop. Then if we can sort of come in at one end and get a bit more resolution as to where we should be looking, and then coming in at the other end and get a better technology for actually detecting, then hopefully the two will meet in the middle and we'll have something that's viable. That's the way I see it.
I think one of those sort of, if the way that nematodes work, Kerry, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it's obviously not the same as a pellet, but even if we had it close to the plant, it doesn't immediately kill the slug. So even though we can, it's infected and it will work over time, that plant would still be at risk because it's not a instant fix. So we really need to have that on that. We can't sort of protect the plant with a shield if so. We have to, like Tom says, have that net and try and reduce that proliferation.
Yeah. And when the nematodes work well, though, what happens within 2-3 days, the slugs start showing feeding inhibition, so they just don't feed until they die within 4 to 21 days. So that's great when they work well. And that would, yes, there will be a slight damage on the points of the plants where they're at there, but it would stop all that other damage that would be coming there over the next week, which is at that crucial point when the plants are quite fragile.
Great. It's worth noting, by the way, that another aspect of the trial, as people know, is the slug-resistant wheat we're looking at, and the trials that are going on in the lab to test slugs, and the colonies of slugs that they've got. They're feeding them lettuce, among other things, to keep them going in between trials. And they have to be very careful what lettuce they buy, because they did wipe out an entire colony of slugs because they got some lettuce that had nematodes on it. So, they are definitely effective. It's just a case of getting them to the right place, I suppose. I'm conscious of time. We've only got 3 minutes left. And I just wondered, in terms of taking things forward, I guess, Callum and Charles, you're going to be sort of formulating your plans as to what sort of things you're going to be looking at in the field. Is there anything in particular that following on from the conversation we've had today, and I don't know whether there's particular farmers that are on the call today that you want to follow up with after this meeting, and talk to them about perhaps aspects where they can help you with the work that you're doing?
Yeah, I think so. I think we can. I think there's been some really interesting topics that we've covered and some perspectives that I don't think we'd gone down that route. Very very far. So what I think it could be is to sort of understand that, and what it really is bringing up the use case, isn't it? Is how this fits into the existing farming models in a sensible way. So from my perspective, some of that, the in-row application, and especially, and how we can work with these predictive models, I think it's the predictive things for us is quite important. But then again, we also need to ground truth it, just like we need to with the accuracy. So for us, these systems are about making sure that all the research actually works and that we're happy with it, because we do need to verify that those areas are the bits with all the slugs, and that's really what Charles' system is there for, and to make sure that we're doing the right thing at the right time. So, yeah, I think there's some really good conversations that we can have after this for sure, Tom.
Great.
Yeah, just following on from that, I agree with Callum. It's been quite useful to hear. I think there are lots of challenges with this, so we're going to have to be clever of how we apply it. I think there is a world where the soil maps give you what you need, and you can apply pellets based on the maps, and you're happier than you are now. I think what we've seen, particularly in that glass house, we do a lot of modelling of pest behaviour for the likes of sort of Fargo and copper, is those forecasts only work for so long and within certain envelopes, and to maintain those forecasts from working well, those projections, you need to keep measuring and monitoring and adjusting. And I think it's our kind of challenge within this project is to be able to implement that measuring and adjusting for the right price point that could feed in, because its value is not entirely clear at the beginning. It sort of comes clear the more applications you use and the more it feeds in. The amount, if I had a penny for every time I heard a farmer saying it was an unprecedented year, it's different. The models based on history don't work anymore, and they have to be adaptive, which I'm sure this is. It's working now. It's just to see, will it work in 3 years, and how can we build the resilience within imaging, whether it be from a drone or on a photonic system, that actually helps that model to maintain use and value going forward. So I think for us, we're kind of seeing this as a 6 meter boom that can go a certain speed, that's going to create a digital twin of that field area, finding slugs, finding emergence, finding weeds. There are things it could call it spectral imaging. It has lots of benefits. The question is, how do we align those benefits to something that's actually going to add value to start with, so that people will actually use it? Because if it's not going to be paid for, then we won't supply it. There's plenty of glass houses to apply, so we're desperately looking for a real buy-in. And I think for us, I think the follow-up conversations are going to be, what else does this system need to be giving you for it to be worthwhile for you to put on the front of your tractor or on the back of your ATV?
Charles, you've got your hand
up.
Yeah,
I'd just like to say, one of the main things I've found out of being part of this is that the attention to detail and monitoring slugs. I think there's a huge opportunity. Well, that has. I mean, last year I saved loads of money by just not applying slug baits when I would normally have done it, and I was given an agronomy recommendation to do it. I didn't, and the threshold I ended up using under the traps was 2 or more in about half the 1 hectare plot trial that I was doing. This is just my empiric thing based on what I was seeing in terms of damage on the surface. I had applied slugs at drilling, slug bait at drilling, but we've got an enormous opportunity with all this work to actually refine our normal farm practice, which is basically agronomists come round on quads, go, yeah, put some in at drilling, then follow up about 2 or 3 weeks later, and then we'll see. And that's that's standard procedure, and we could greatly reduce the amount of money that we spend and slug bait that we're spinning about on the environment, just by being more refined with this kind of intensity of observation and knowledge that we're putting into mapping slugs. And the thing Reese was saying about how being content to use the mapping, I would be as well. I think we do far too much baiting that we don't need to do, and a little bit early on quite often holds things, and we don't need to be going. I mean, over the years I've applied absolutely loads. When I worked on a Velcourt farm in the Fens, on Fens Skirt, you could go out every week and still apply, and you could still have it. So there's a lot to it, and attention to detail is definitely going to help.
look, I think everyone needs to move off. We've had a really good discussion. I hope this is the start of things as well. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. I just want to say, use us as the hub, if you like. So, for example, I was going to suggest, Laura, that you make sure that Kerry and Pete get in touch afterwards, share their contact details. But also, of course, do use the WhatsApp channels as well. We've got the Slug Sleuths in one WhatsApp channel, and that's just the guys who are involved in the trials. But Callum and Charles, you're very welcome to join those conversations, as you are, Kerry, as well. And there's also the Slug Circle, which I think you've all been contributing to. And that's, again, a great forum to share some of those ideas and so on. So do use those forums to get in touch with specific people and say, here's a question, or can I come out to your farm? And equally, the other way around, how do nematodes work? What can we do? And things like that. What about this idea? That's exactly what those forums are about. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. We've run 5 minutes over. Apologies for that. Thank you. I think that was a really good discussion. And as I say, I hope that's the start of where we can go over this season to do some really good trials work. Thank you.
Thank you for your time, everyone. All.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, Tom. Good to see you on Tuesday at REAP.
Yeah, it was good to see you too, Jake. This is about one of the first sessions that I think you've been in on. Did you find it useful?
I did. Yes. Yeah. No. Absolutely. It's fascinating.
Oh, good. Fantastic. Would you like to get involved with some of these areas? I don't know how much of the stuff that we were talking about today is actually going to come out into the field. But I know that Callum and Charles are keen to work with farmers on specific elements of what they're developing.
Yeah, no, very, very happy to be involved. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we're 3 weeks into the slug trial here, the Slimers, so we've got 2 more weeks to go. And that's been quite interesting, seeing where the populations are and where they just on subtle differences within the field. So it is, it's quite good.
And do the maps bear out? Are you finding, because the whole idea of those transects is they're supposed to go between your high risk zone and your low risk zone. So are you finding that in the trap counts, or is it difficult to tell?
Probably 80% accurate. So you have a run of 2 or 3 traps in the lower risk areas, and you think, oh, this is great, and then you open the next one, and there's one in there. So it's not 100%, but it's more accurate than it's inaccurate. We find quite a few more snails in there, which is quite interesting.
Oh, do log the snails. There's a comments box if you log the snails in that.
Yes. Yeah, no, we have been adding those in the comment section.
Brilliant.
On the web page. So yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, it's good.
Great. And the app's working for you all right, is it?
Yes. Yeah, we had a bit of the front page. I think we uploaded that about 9 times because we sort of kept doing save and then go to the next page, and then the first page was then blank again. So we were like, well, did it save it? Because on the second page, once you'd fill that information on and then move to the first page of trials, when you went back, that second page had saved itself.
I think when you saved it, when you submitted it, it then goes blank again, but it does log the information. And if you go into my submissions, then it should show you the forms that have been uploaded. Because there's my progress and there's also submissions, and it's the submissions that gives you in a very basic form the actual forms that you've submitted.
So that took a bit of getting used to, because we were thinking like, oh Christ, has it saved it, sort of thing. But yeah, no, apart from that, it's worked well. Few challenges with the I put the question on the WhatsApp chat about the A4 bit of paper with the squares on, where we've got cover crops, and I think the first day we had shadows because it was bright.
Tom Dewars has been finding the same problem, that it interferes with it. Yeah, no, Freddie's working on that. I mean, this is the first time we've used it, Jake. It was an idea that Freddie came up with. So we literally were field testing it for the first time ever this year. So, yeah.
Yeah, got the hang of what it needed to, or what didn't need to be obstructing it. Most of the time, 90% of the time, it's fine. Sometimes you've got to take a picture 4 times, and then on the 5th one, it accepts it for whatever reason. But that is few and far between now. So, yeah, much improved.
Right. So it's improving, is it?
Definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, well, I'll feed that back to Fred.
Yeah.
But do, any problems you get in the field, do put them through on the chat, because Freddie is there and he's responding to it, and so Sky and everyone.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Great.
Super.
Okay. Good to see you, Jake, and good to see you the other day as well. I think it was a really good conference, by the way. That was the best REAP I think I've been to, if I'm honest.
Well, I would agree. I went to one at Rothamsted, I think it was, probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I wasn't that impressed. And Penelope goes every year because she's like really into that.
Yes.
Very enthusiastic about REAP. And I'm, it's the REAP conference, you better go. And I'm like, oh. But actually, it was slightly closer to home this last time. I did enjoy it. Yeah, I thought it was good. Yeah.
No, we had, because we exhibited, well, it was Clemmy who was on the stand, and she said she never drew breath. She had loads and loads of people coming to the stand, asking questions and so on, which is great,
Yeah, go and see her right at the start. Actually, we were up there quite early, just because you've got to set off early to get there, and sometimes you're there on time, and other times you're not. And I had a chat with her then, so that was nice.
Oh, good.
Her and new part of the team.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks a lot, Jake. I won't hold you up any longer, but good to see you. And by the way, thank you so much for joining. I think we're going to be involved in an adopt project together. The one that Tim's involved in, the microbes thing. Is that right?
Tim Parton.
Yeah, I think Michael Kavanagh's leading it.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. House one with Lighthouse Farms, or is that something else? It might be something else.
That's probably something else. So the one I'm thinking about is microbes. So microbes, as in with a Z.
With Z. Absolutely. Kirsty Gordon, is it? Yes.
I can't remember her name. I think that's right. Yes.
Yeah. We're in with that one, definitely.
Oh, good. Well, we're just putting that together. So we're the facilitator on that one. Interested to hear that Stuart wasn't. So he's got a really interesting slug trial that he's been doing, and he got Niab to be his facilitator. And that Stuart, it was basically on the back of that Adopt project that Stuart got to hear about us and the project, which is why he's involved in this. But he has horrendous problems with slugs, and he's determined that he's put this Adopt project together to help. So it's a shame that he hasn't got it, but perhaps we can help him be successful with that. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I won't hold you up any longer, Jake. Brilliant to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you as well on Tuesday, Tom. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, and you. Okay, bye-bye.